Okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever wondered what truly makes a nation a military powerhouse in today's fast-paced world? I mean, beyond just, the biggest armies or the biggest budgets.
Right. It's changed quite a bit.
We're about to dive deep into global military powers in 2025. Our insights today, they come from excerpts of a really fascinating report. It's titled Global Military Powers 2025, a strategic ranking.
And our mission for you, our listener, is really to get beyond just listing names off a ranking. We're here to help you understand what actually defines military strength in this new era, what these rankings truly mean for global geopolitics, and also how a nation's influence isn't always what it seems just looking at the surface numbers.
Exactly.
We'll pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge, if you like, to give you a shortcut to being genuinely well-informed on this. It's a critical topic.
That's precisely what caught my eye reading through this. The report itself really redefines military power. It's not just about who has the most tanks or, personnel anymore. So what were some of the surprising new metrics they looked at?
It's a really crucial shift. The report's final verdict section, it hammers home that raw numbers are just one piece, a small piece almost. What's truly paramount now is a nation's adaptability, its tech edge, definitely the strength of its strategic alliances, and its global influence.
Oh.
It's this blend of quantity and quality. And really only a select few nations manage to dominate across all those dimensions. It really challenges that traditional view of military might, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, it makes you look at things very differently. All right, let's kick off our countdown then. Starting at number 10. The report calls this nation the silent strategist. It's Pakistan coming in at number 10. Strengths. Well, they're nuclear armed, got second strike capability, an experienced army with real battlefield exposure, defensive doctrine focused on deterrence. But what really seems to stand out is that strategic alliance with China. You see it with things like CPAC and joint exercises.
Yeah.
How does Pakistan manage such a, calculated role, especially given what you might think are resource constraints?
That's where silent strategist really fits, I think. What's insightful here is how they leverage that nuclear deterrence, yes, but also that deep strategic tie with China. It's not just defensive. They use it as a surprisingly effective tool for regional influence.
Interesting.
CPEC, for example, that's the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. It's not just an acronym, it's this massive infrastructure project. It deeply embeds their strategic ties, gives Pakistan crucial access to, intelligence resources.
Right.
Now, they do have a comparatively smaller defense budget, and they are lagging a bit in military tech, especially air power modernization. But that strategic positioning, it lets them punch well above their economic weight. Yeah. They act as a key regional nuclear balancer in South Asia.
Okay, from Pakistan's subtle play, let's shift focus. Number 9 is Turkey. The tactical bridge.
Turkey, right.
They've got one of NATO's largest standing armies. But what's really revolutionary, it seems, is their indigenous drone tech, specifically the Bayraktar series.
Oh, yeah, those have made headlines.
Definitely reshaping modern warfare. And they're strategically located, right, between Europe, Asia, the Middle East.
Critical thought.
So how exactly does a specific tech niche like these drones redefine a nation's military standing so dramatically?
Well, it's a prime example of really targeted innovation. The Bayraktar drones, they're known for being cost-effective and, importantly, proven in combat recently.
We've seen that.
It shows how maybe smaller nations, relatively speaking, can project power and achieve objectives without needing that traditional, incredibly expensive air superiority.
Sure, that changes the calculus.
Turkey's rapid development and deployment of these systems mean they can act as a significant regional power. Think about areas like the Caucasus or North Africa. Now, they do face economic pressures, political volatility that can limit long-term investment consistency.
Sure.
But their evolution into a drone superpower means they're not just a bridge anymore. They're an active player with growing ambitions beyond their borders.
That's a fascinating leap, that drone capability. Okay, number 8, Japan, dubbed the Tech Fortress.
Tech Fortress.
Strengths. Ultra-modern self-defense forces, advanced Navy, advanced Air Force, heavy investment in cyber and space security.
High-tech stuff.
But Japan is famously constitutionally restricted from offensive warfare. Limited ground force capability in extended conflicts is mentioned as a weakness.
Right, the pacifist constitution.
So how do they manage to be this, quote, quiet powerhouse, focusing on cutting-edge defense, even with those big limitations?
Japan really shows how those constitutional constraints can actually, perhaps counterintuitively, drive a unique form of military strength. Their focus is laser-sharp on high-tech defense. They pour investment into capabilities protecting the homeland, vital sea lanes, not power projection far abroad.
Okay.
So that means leading-edge naval vessels, advanced air defense, critical cyber and space capabilities. These act as force multipliers.
Got it.
This specialized focus, plus their rock-solid alliance with the U.S., allows them to be this high-tech defender. Eyes on space, eyes on sea dominance. Even without massive ground forces for long conflicts, it's a distinct model, really.
It is remarkable how they've carved out that specific niche. Okay, number 7, South Korea, the high alert warrior.
Always on edge.
Exactly. Their constant combat readiness, largely due to the North Korean threat, is listed as a major strength, plus a strong indigenous arms industry. They're building K-2 tanks, advanced missile defense.
Very capable.
But this kind of persistent threat, it must just shape everything, right? How has that geopolitical pressure driven their innovation, made them punch above their size?
It's undeniable. That constant threat from the North isn't just a burden for South Korea. It's a massive accelerator.
Right.
It's forced them to innovate at an incredible pace, push them to develop their own tech, like those K-2 tanks, like the missile defense systems, stuff that directly counters the specific threats they face daily.
Tailor-made defense.
Precisely. This ensures their forces are not just highly trained, but also tech-enabled for immediate, hair-trigger response. Now, they do depend on U.S. support for strategic defense, the bigger picture stuff, and they're constrained by being so close to volatile neighbors. But that relentless pressure, it has forged a modern military innovator. Unmatched readiness on the Korean peninsula truly lets them punch above their size in capability.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, number 6, France. The Global Legion.
France. Ooh.
They're a nuclear power, impressive global deployment capabilities, world-class fighter jets, the Rafale nuclear subs.
Top-tier equipment.
And their forces are combat-tested, Africa, Middle East. They've been active. They clearly have global reach. But how do they manage that, maintaining such a strong international military footprint while balancing NATO loyalty and their independent global operations?
It's a careful act. Strategic autonomy, that's the key phrase for France. They've historically maintained this unique posture.
Right.
Prioritizing their own defense industry, their own global interests, while still being a committed NATO member. It's a balancing act. What's fascinating is their ability to project power, even with relatively smaller troop numbers compared to some giants. They leverage high-quality, advanced equipment and specialized, highly trained forces that are genuinely combat-tested.
Quality over quantity again.
Exactly. Now, political challenges can sometimes limit future military spending. That's a potential weakness. But their global network of bases, their experience in multinational operations, it ensures they remain a true global legion, capable of independent action, significant international influence.
That blend really is a theme. Okay, number 5, the United Kingdom, the Maritime Guardian.
Suiting name.
Their elite Royal Navy, aircraft carriers, advanced stealth fighters like the F-25B, plus the nuclear deterrent with Trident subs, gives them global reach, serious power projection.
A lot of capability there.
But despite these strengths, the report notes downsizing in Army personnel, budget pressures impacting modernization speed.
Yes, those are real pressures.
So how does the UK stay globally relevant through this precision and power projection, even with those internal constraints?
The UK shows how you can stay relevant by focusing resources strategically. Maritime Guardian is apt because they leverage their geography, their history as a naval power.
Makes sense for an island nation.
Right. Despite some Army downsizing, despite budget pressures hitting modernization speed in, certain areas, their emphasis remains on the Royal Navy and air power. And crucially, that independent nuclear deterrent?
The Trident system.
Yes. That allows them to maintain precision strike capabilities, a strong global presence. They prioritize high-impact, technologically advanced assets. It ensures they can project power, respond to crises worldwide, proves that a targeted, powerful maritime force with nuclear teeth, still highly relevant.
Okay, moving into the top 4. Number 4, the emerging giant, India.
India, yeah.
Big player.
Huge manpower, you mentioned it. Around 1.5 million active personnel, indigenous missiles, Agni, BrahMos, nuclear-armed, expanding Navy, satellite capabilities. India is clearly a rising force. But what are the key factors really driving this trajectory, from just a regional player to an emerging military-industrial power with such broad ambitions? Well, what's fascinating here is India's trajectory. It's multifaceted. The sheer manpower is undeniable, obviously. But it's their increasing self-reliance, their technological advancements. That's what's really changing the game.
The indigenous part.
Exactly. Indigenous missiles like Agni, that's a long-range ballistic missile. BrahMos is a supersonic cruise missile. These aren't just names. They show a real commitment to developing their own advanced weaponry, reducing reliance on imports.
Strategic move.
Absolutely. Now, they do face challenges. Modernization gaps still exist in some branches. Logistical challenges due to their vast-sized, diverse terrain.
Yeah.
That's huge for India.
Understandable.
But India is rapidly becoming a major military-industrial force.
Yeah.
No longer just regional. They're looking beyond their borders, eyes on space, oceans, defending complex borders, solidifying that status as a true emerging giant.
And speaking of giants, number 3, China. The rising dragon.
The big one.
World's largest standing army, dominant naval growth, really dominant cyber and AI integration, hypersonic weapons, anti-satellite weapons.
Cutting edge, often worrying tech.
The report says the dragon is no longer asleep, it's learning to fly. What does that really mean about the speed and scale of China's military expansion? What are the implications?
That quote, it perfectly captures the sheer scale of their ambition. China is building a military to match its economic power, and the speed is, well, unprecedented.
At least that way.
When we talk about hypersonic weapons, for instance, we mean missiles traveling over 5 times the speed of sound. Incredibly hard to intercept.
Game changer.
Anti-satellite weapons. They can disrupt global communications, surveillance. That's a massive strategic concern for everyone else.
Definitely.
Now, the primary weaknesses: limited, real, large-scale war experience for their modern military, and, as the report notes, an international trust deficit due to their increasingly aggressive posture in some regions.
Right, the South China Sea, Taiwan.
Exactly. However, the sheer investment in next-gen tech, the expansion across all domains, it means China is actively asserting itself, a major military power with growing global reach and influence, no question.
It's a rapid, almost startling transformation. Okay. Next up, number 2, Russia, the battle-hardened titan.
Russia, still a major force.
Strengths: largest nuclear stockpile globally, vast missile systems like the S-400 air defense, hypersonics too, and decades of experience, hybrid warfare, conventional war.
They know how to fight in various ways.
The report calls them a master of chaos, given economic sanctions limiting upgrades, aging equipment in some areas. How does Russia maintain this formidable presence, this strategic importance as the battle-hardened titan?
The report's description, master of chaos, is pretty apt, I think. Their enduring strength lies less in having pristine cutting-edge kit across the board, and more in strategic deterrence, that massive nuclear arsenal, those vast missile systems like the S-400, and particularly their extensive experience in hybrid and unconventional warfare.
The gray zone stuff.
Exactly. They're adept at asymmetric tactics, leveraging geopolitical instability. Now, economic sanctions do limit upgrades. Some units definitely have aging equipment. We've seen evidence of that. But Russia's ability to create and exploit geopolitical situations, project power strategically where it counts, and maintain that huge nuclear deterrent, it means they remain a highly fearsome force. Their strength isn't just about what they possess, but how strategically they deploy and leverage it.
Makes sense. And finally, number 1. The undisputed leader, the report says, the United States. The global enforcer.
No surprise at number 1.
Highest defense budget in history, around $850 billion, it mentions. Unmatched air power, dedicated Space Force now, cyber command, global presence, bases everywhere. Truly formidable.
Dominant across the board.
But with such an expansive global footprint, are there risks? Overextension? And how do they keep this top spot despite, internal political divisions that could impact policy continuity?
It's true. There are inherent risks of overextension. Spreading forces too thin across global theaters is a constant balancing act. And internal political divisions, they can certainly impact policy continuity, funding decisions.
You see that play out?
We do.
Yeah.
However, what's truly fascinating here, and the report underscores this, is that despite these potential weaknesses, the U.S. remains the undisputed global military leader. They don't just dominate one area. They excel across land, sea, air, space, and cyber. It's multi-domain dominance.
The whole package.
Pretty much. Their defense budget, more than the next 10 countries combined, roughly allows for continuous innovation, that unmatched global reach, this vast integrated network of capabilities, the commitment to technological superiority. It makes them the ultimate global enforcer, a multi-domain force setting the standard worldwide.
So pulling it all together, What does this all mean? The report offers a final verdict that seems to crystallize everything we've just gone through.
It absolutely does. The core idea, the big takeaway, is that military power in 2025 is fundamentally no longer just about counting tanks or soldiers.
Right.
It's shifted. It's a far more nuanced understanding now. It emphasizes adaptability, that cutting-edge technology we talked about, the strength of strategic alliances, and crucially, a nation's global influence.
And the report summarizes it beautifully. I thought this quote was great. Some countries win by quantity, others win by quality, but only a few dominate all dimensions.
That really nails it, doesn't it? It emphasizes that crucial shift in how we should understand global military strength, moving far beyond just raw numbers. It's a more holistic view of capabilities, reach, influence. It's about more than just brute force. It's about strategic intelligence, technological superiority, adaptability.
What an incredible deep dive. Really fascinating stuff looking at the global military powers in 2025. It's so clear that the definition of military powers is just constantly evolving, isn't it? Blending that traditional might with tech, alliances, strategy.
Absolutely.
It really makes you think about how countries are trying to adapt or maybe failing to adapt.
And this raises, I think, an important question for you, the listener, to consider going forward. As technology continues its relentless advance, how might these rankings shift even further, maybe in just the next few years? What new innovations, maybe AI, quantum computing, biotech, or perhaps new alliances, might push a country that seems weaker today into becoming a future powerhouse?
Yeah, here's where it gets really interesting. We definitely encourage you to ponder those insights. Think about how these dynamic shifts in military power influence the world around you. Lots to chew on there. Hey,